It's a question that's been kicked around for years. If you're a journalist who covers politics, should you cast a vote when the election rolls around? Now the argument is raging once again, and there's still no consensus. Adam Riley has more.
If you want to give someone credit for reopening the great Should Journalists Vote debate, thank the Poynter Institute's Kelly McBride, who tweeted this week, "Should journalists vote in primaries? Go." NBC's Gotti Schwartz said for him the answer's no, because I don't feel comfortable voting while covering politics. AP's Meg Kennard said maybe, only if it doesn't require them to register with a party. And BuzzFeed's Tom Namako scoffed at the question. Right, the same way a reporter who covers tech shouldn't own a mobile phone. If you're getting deja vu, so are we.
Governor Bush and Vice President Gore.
20 years ago, presidential debate moderator Jim Lehrer made headlines by saying he didn't vote. A few years later, Beat the Press asked a bevy of Boston journos whether they do, and got a wide range of answers.
I think a reporter can easily vote, have their own opinions.
I never want to have a candidate sitting across from me and saying, you would never vote for me.
But the sharpest take came from a familiar face.
To suggest that you're without bias, without opinion, without emotion, is to suggest that you're not breathing.
And whether you hit the polls or stay home, that doesn't change.
By the way, of course, that was Jim Lehrer from the NewsHour, and we're going to be recognize him a little bit later in the show. So there you go, John. You still feel the same way?
It's amazing how ageless I am.
Yeah,
It's just remarkable.
Actually, you look better now.
Yeah, the hair dye really helps. Yeah. So, I absolutely feel the same way. I thought one of those tweeters in the package there indicating that if you're a political reporter as opposed to a commentator and you're covering a race, it might be helpful if you were unenrolled. Mm-hmm. Just so that
but
they
a lot of primaries make you many states,
well, yeah,
Wisconsin.
But then usually you can switch back.
Yeah,
In
but
Massachusetts
still you have to,
you can.
Yes.
And that's what I do.
The door, yeah.
But the notion that you're not going to vote, it's just...
Massachusetts doesn't even do that anymore. They don't even do that fall-to-wall.
They automatically return you, so, come on. And also, at some point, you got to say my work speaks for itself. Yeah. If the work isn't partisan, then there's no grounds for anyone to claim you are, even if you do vote.
All right. Anybody disagree?
No. What I would say is, even in Massachusetts, where your party affiliation is a matter of public record, I don't think it's a big deal. We vote. You know where I do have a little bit of a problem? We've learned that in Minnesota, not only do you have to register with a party in order to take part in the primary, which I think we could live with, but apparently you have to take some sort of blood oath to support the party's principles and philosophy and everything else. And reporters in Minnesota are in fact having a problem with that, and I can understand why.
I think that it's very important that reporters are not giving contributions. That should be never happening. So I just want to make that clear. But for me, really quite frankly, there's blood on that ballot. I can name people who died so that I could make sure that I voted. So you will never find me in a situation where I am not voting. I don't give a care what the situation is. I will be voting. I'm standing on the shoulders of all those people.
I completely agree with you. And I think if you're going to take that line where you can't vote, then really you can't do anything as a reporter, because we all have associations, whether it's a church you go to and you have to be critical of churches or in a critical story, whatever it is, or the technology piece. We all use, or at one point use, Windows operating system and have to do stories about Microsoft. There are all kinds of conflicts. I think the big thing you do as a reporter is not necessarily jump from the mountaintops and say, hey, look what I do, and I'm connected, or I'm voting for this person. You don't have to share all that information with people. You are a human being. You do things just like everyone else. Don't share too much of your personal life unless it's needed for the public.
The one thing I will say is I think there's a presumption among a lot of candidates that most people in the media are liberal. I mean, because it's generally true. It has been true for decades anyway. And so people like Andy Hiller just didn't even want to have that be addressed. Like, you're not going to accuse me of being one thing or the other, because I'm telling you right now, I'm not voting for you or the other guy, so don't look at me.
But it doesn't really matter, because they'll still think that whether you vote or not, right?
Yeah,
they'll still, so you're a liberal, non-voting journalist. That's how
exactly. Right. So I think it's important that the way that you present yourself in questioning and the way that you report the story make sure that everybody is fairly covered, wherever you fall. That's what you owe the readers and the listeners.
And you know what else? I'm an in-the-booth decider when it comes to voting. Because I do try to suspend while I'm out there covering. I think it makes me a better analyst and reporter. Because I'm looking at it like any other voter trying to make up their mind.